Welcome back to another crochet tutorial by Cozy Rosie Crochet. Today I am bringing you the Snowflake spiked square as part of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. I am absolutely in love with this square, from the snowflake details through to the brilliant border. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out on another one of my crochet tutorials again. If you have missed any of the other squares that are featured as part of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along, you can find a link in the description box that will take you through to see all of the 30 squares that are going to be featured. You can also find a written pattern for this square and a link to purchase your own copy of the crochet along. Let's find out the materials we need to make our very own snowflake spiked square. So the materials that you're going to need to make your very own snowflake spiked square is any Aran or worsted weight yarn. I'm using this PaintBox Yarns Simply Aran, which is 100% acrylic and is a size 4 yarn. And I've got colour A. I'm going to be using champagne white, which is shade number 202. And then I've got my bubblegum pink, which is shade 250. I'm going to be using the recommended hook size, which is a 5mm hook. Of course, I've got my scissors, a darning needle, and just in case, I've got a few stitch markers, just so we can work out where we're placing our spike stitches and mark some chain spaces if we need to. So gather all of your materials and let's get started. So this square is going to be worked in the round, but they're going to be turned rounds. So we're going to start by making a slip knot. You can of course opt to make an adjustable ring or a magic circle. We're just going to make a slip knot if I can and place that onto our hook. Tighten it by pulling on that working yarn, and then we're ready to get started. So we're going to start by making a chain of 4. So we just yarn over the hook and pull through 4 times. And then we slip stitch back into that first chain that we made. So we just yarn over, pull through and straight through the loop on our hook. And that makes a ring that we can work into. Remembering we're not working into that top hole, we're going to work into that bottom one. So from here, we're going to start by making a chain of 2. Now this chain 2 counts as our first corner. We're then going to work 2 single crochets into the middle of that ring, so the bottom hole. So we work 1 single crochet, that's a US single crochet, and a second single crochet. We then chain 2 and make 2 single crochets a further 3 times. So that's 1 single crochet and a second single crochet. And if you want to help make things a bit easier as we come back around, you can place a stitch marker into your chain 2 spaces. So you can place your stitch markers into your chain 2 spaces so you can identify those corners really easily. So we're going to repeat that for 2 more times. So we chain 2 and then work 2 single crochets into that ring again. I'm going to place my next stitch marker in. So I've marked that next chain 2 space and just do that final repeat. So we chain 2, then work a final 2 single crochets into the ring. I'm going to mark my last corner just so we can see them. So you should have 4 corners, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then we're going to slip stitch into that first chain 2 space that we made to join this round. So I'm just going to insert my hook where that first marker is, pull through and pull through the loop on my hook, and that joins our first round. So at the end of round 1 you should have 8 single crochets and 4 chain 2 spaces. So we're going to turn our work. There's no chains in our turns for these ones. So going into round 2, there's no turning chain, but you should have your tail facing you because we're working on the wrong side of our project for this row, for this round. And we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into the top of that single crochet and then another single crochet into the next. And then we're going to work into the chain 2 space. I'm going to remove my marker for a moment. I'm going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2 and another single crochet back into that chain 2 space. Pop my stitch marker back on, because that marks our corner with that chain 2 space. And then we're going to repeat that all the way round. So we work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then into the next chain 2 space. We're going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet. You can pop your stitch markers in if you want to. You can omit them if you want to as well. I'm just going to do them just so we can see our corners at the end of each round. So we're going to repeat that again. So work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then we're going to work into the next corner, working 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet into that chain 2 space. I'm going to repeat that for a final time into this last, across this last 2 single crochet. So you work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2. And then we're just going to work into that final chain 2 space with our corner. So we work 1 single crochet, a chain 2, and a final single crochet into that chain 2 space. And then we're going to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made. Pop my stitch marker back in to that final corner. And there we have the end of round 2. So at the end of round 2, you should have 16 single crochets and 4 chain 2 spaces. So going into round 3, we're going to turn our work. So all our odd numbered rows are going to be our right side. So from here, we're going to work into the top of our first single crochet, working 1 single crochet, and then we're straight into our corner. So we work our corner stitch, which is 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet into that chain 2 space. I'm going to pop my stitch marker back in. We then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we work to our next corner, work our corner again. So 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet. Corner stitch back in, it just makes it easier to identify them. But then we're going to repeat that, so we work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches, and we've reached the next corner. So again, we're going to repeat that from the beginning. So you work 1 single, we're going to work our corner, so 1 single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Pop that corner back in. I'm going to repeat that again across the top. So we work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's 2, 3, and 4. We've reached our final corner. So we're going to work 1 single crochet, a chain 2, and a final single crochet. Pop my stitch marker back in. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 to get us back to our starting point. So that's number 2. Number 3 is where we did our turn. So we just need to kind of pop our hook in there and complete there. And we can slip stitch, just so you can see where I did that actually, because it might not be that clear. You can see that you've got this stitch underneath where we turned. So just make sure you've worked into that 3rd one along, because we've already worked our first one when we turned. And we're just going to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made. So at the end of round 3, you should have a total of 24 single crochets and 4 chain 2 spaces still. So going into round 4, Again, we're going to turn our work, so we're doing an even numbered row, so it's our wrong side, so we should be able to see our tails. And we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So we've turned, we're not working the one underneath, we're working this from here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 3, and there's number 4 just before our corner. And then, as always, we're going to work the same corner again. So we work 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet into that same chain 2 space. I'm going to replace my stitch marker. And then from here, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 6. So we've got 6 stitches across here now. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that takes us to our next corner. But you know what we're going to work in here. So we're going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet into that chain 2 space. So we're going to repeat that all the way across, working 1 single crochet into the next 6 and then working our corner all the way to our last 2 stitches. So I'll meet you at your final corner in a moment. So I've just worked my last corner and we do have 2 single crochets left to work. So we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2. And again, this last single crochet is just underneath where we turned. So it's easy to miss that stitch. So if you look for, you can see it very well, you've got a little lump where we've turned and we're just going to insert our hook underneath that to work that last single crochet. So at the end of round 4, you should have a total of 32 single crochets, including that one there. So make sure you've got the right stitch count across the top and you've still got your 4 chain 2 spaces. Now at the end of this row, we are actually going to fasten off colour A. So I'm going to make a little slip knot, well, a little chain 1, and then fasten off colour A. So make sure you've double checked your stitch count before you do this, and then we're ready to fasten off. We are going to work over that later, so don't worry about that lump too much. So we're going to go into round 5 and we're going to make sure that we have the right side of our project working. That's why I still have my tail, so I know that the tail is at the back, so my right side is facing me. And we're going to fasten or join colour B, which for me is my bubblegum pink, into any of our chain 2 corner spaces. I'm just going to remove this stitch marker because it's a different colour, so I know which one I've joined into. And I'm going to do my little trick of not joining properly. Just going to tie it on so it's nice and secure. You can just make a slip knot if you want to. I just like to join it and tie it on so it's really super secure. I'm putting the knot towards the side that I'm going to work over straight away into my corner. And once you've fastened that on, we are ready to start our corner. So we're going to insert our hook into that corner space, bring our loop up, and we're just going to work. So once you've fastened that on, I'm making a little chain 1 to fasten on. That's not going to count as a stitch. And we're going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2 for our corner, and a second single crochet back into that same corner space. I'm going to place my stitch marker back in so I know where I've started. Oops. And now we're going to continue to work across the top here. So this is going to be our repeat, and we're going to start doing our spike stitches from here. So before we do our spike, we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So we single crochet into 1, single crochet into the next. We're then going to work our spiked cluster stitch. So we're going to start our spiked cluster stitch by inserting our hook 1 row below the current stitch we've just worked, not the one to be worked, but our current one. And we yarn over, bring our loop up to the height of our round. We don't want these to be tight. And then we insert our hook 2 rows below the stitch that we are working now, which is here. So from here we count down 2 rows and that takes me down here. So that's 1 and 2. So we insert our hook, yarn over, bring up a third loop. You can see the different heights there. So you've got one directly underneath where we've just worked. We've got one 2 rows below the stitch we're about to work, and then we're going to insert the hook 1 row below the next stitch to be worked. So if you see how you've got these 2 stitches covered, we're going down underneath this row into the next stitch 1 row along. So we're going to yarn over, bring up our third loop. You can see they're level, and that's 1 below. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on our hook. So that was our first spiked cluster stitch. We're then going to work 1 single crochet just behind this last spike we've worked. So it's this stitch just behind. So you might need to move your last bit out of the way. So it is possible that it would be hidden. If you look here, it looks like you need to work into this one, but it's this one just behind that last spike we need to work. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then we're ready to spike again. I'm getting some more yarn out, so I know that we've got enough here to do our spike. So we'll do another one together. So we're going into the 1 row below the current stitch that we're working. So we insert the hook, yarn over, bring our loop up to the height of our row, and then we're going 2 rows underneath the current stitch that we want to work. So there's our next stitch we're working, 1, 2, so all the way down there. I'm placing my finger on my hook to keep that loop nice and loose. I'm bringing that one up to the height we want, and then we're going 1 row below the next stitch to be worked. Oh, yarn over, Fiona, there we go, and bring up our 4th loop. Make sure we've got lots of loose tension on those before we yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. So we need to work into this single crochet that's just hiding behind that last spike that we worked. So single crocheting into the next 2 stitches to complete those first 2 spikes. We should then be at our corner, which I am. I hope you are as well. Don't worry, I'm going to go through this the whole way round for you. So we're going to work our corner stitch here. So 1 single crochet, chain 2, and then a further single crochet into that chain 2 space. I'll pop my stitch marker back into my corner, and then we're ready to repeat that again. So we work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So then we're ready to work our next spike stitch. We're first going to spike 1 row underneath the stitch that we've just worked, bring a loop up. This is our next stitch to be worked, so we're going 2 rows down, yarn over, bring up a 3rd loop, and then our last spike is underneath the next stitch along by 1 row down. So you should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. So if I hold it straight, you've got 2 in line with each other and the middle one's 1 row further down. Remember, we need to work behind this last spike into that stitch directly after the one we've just worked, working a further 2 single crochets, and then we're ready to work our next spike. So we're inserting our hook underneath that stitch we've just worked to bring up our first loop. Here's our next stitch that we're currently working. We're going 2 rows down into that one there, bring up the next loop, and then we're going underneath this row. We're going into the next stitch underneath by 1 row. 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. I'm just going to go behind this spike here so we can work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and that takes us to our next corner. So we can then continue to work our corner stitch, which is 1 single crochet, chain 2 and a further single crochet. I'll work this next section with you again because I'm sure by now you've probably got it, and if you haven't, we're going to take our time and do it again. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. That's 1 and 2, And then from here, let's see if I can show you exactly with my, rather than doing it, I'm going to show you exactly where we're going. So this is our stitch we've just worked. So we're going into that hole there, and then into underneath the stitch that we're currently, or we would be working, we're going 2 rows down. So through there, and then we're going 1 row underneath the next stitch. So we're going directly underneath this stitch we've just worked to bring up our first loop. Then this is our next stitch, so we're going 2 rows down, bringing up our next loop. The next stitch we go 1 row down to bring our 4th loop up. Then we yarn over and pull through all of them. We then work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. Not really the best timing. So that's 1 and 2. Oops. Just a bit tight to get in there because that's where I did my slip stitch. And then we're ready to work our spike stitch again. So I'm just going to move that tail out of the way so we can see where the row is. So we're going to work first of all into that stitch just underneath where we've worked. Bring up our first loop. And then we're going to spike 2 rows down underneath the stitch we would be working. So bring up our 3rd loop, and then we're going 1 row down underneath the next. I'm not working over that tail because I'm going to have to weave that in later. Get rid of that. There we go. Bring up that next loop. Make sure they're not too tight. Then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And that finishes that section. So working over that bit where we've joined is a little bit awkward, as you just saw, but we just had to take our time and make sure we're placing them into the right place. We're then going to work our corner stitch. So we work 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet. Then going to place my stitch marker back in. We do it one final time together. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then we're ready to work our next spike. So we go 1 row down underneath that current stitch, we're going 2 rows down under the next, and then we go 1 row down underneath the next stitch and pull through all 4. Make sure that you're working that stitch behind that next spike. So 1 and 2. If you're really not sure, you should still have your spike stitch and 2 single crochets left. So we've worked those 2 single crochets. Let's do that last spike. So we're inserting our hook 1 row down underneath the stitch we've just worked, 2 rows down, find where that is, underneath. It's funny, you've got to kind of straighten your work out sometimes to find which stitch you're working into, and then finally 1 row underneath the last stitch to be worked. Pull through all 4 loops. You've got 2 single crochets to work for this round, 1 and 2, and then we're going to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made to join the round. So this really is one of my square designs on its own, but I thought I'd better extend it a little bit because I really love it. It just looks like snowflakes to me. So at the end of round 5, you should have 8 spike stitches. You've still got your 4 chain 2 spaces, and you should have a total of 32 single crochets. That's the important bit to double check because you want to make sure you've got 2 in between and 2 each side, plus your corners. So double check that you've got those right stitch counts all the way around, and then we can go into round 6. So going into round 6, we're going to make sure that we've turned our work because it's an even number of rows, so we should have our tail facing us. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 9 single crochets. So this one that we've turned in, we're going to leave for a moment and just work 1 single crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. That should take you to your corner. And then we're going to work our corner, which is 1 single crochet, a chain of 2 and a further single crochet all into that corner. Pop my stitch marker back in. And then what we're going to do is work 1 single crochet into each of the next 10 stitches to the corner, work our corner and repeat that around back to the last stitch. So repeat that around, working 1 single crochet into each of the next 10 stitches, work your corner of a single crochet, chain 2 single crochet and repeat that round, and I'll meet you back at where we started. So I've just finished my last corner and we've got 1 single crochet left to work after that final corner before we can slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet that we made. So at the end of round 6 you should have a total of 48 single crochets and still have your 4 chain 2 spaces. Going into round 7, we're not going to do our chain 1, of course, we just work those first 2 stitches. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. That's 1 and 2, and we're into our first corner. So we're going to work 1 single crochet, a chain 2 and 1 single crochet. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 12 stitches all the way across to the next corner. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 12 stitches and then work our corner of a single crochet, chain 1 single crochet. Continue to repeat that around and I'll meet you in this corner here. So I've just worked my final corner and we have to just work 10 single crochets back to where we started this round. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, which is just underneath where we turned. And then we're ready to slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet that we made. Isn't it just absolutely stunning? So going into round 8, we're going to turn, and with this time we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 11 stitches to that first corner. So let's do those. Remembering we don't work into that one we've just turned, we're going to work underneath there. So that's 1, 2, 11, and that takes us to our first corner. We're then going to work our corner of 1 single crochet, chain 2 and a further single crochet. We're going to then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 14 stitches on and then work our corner. We're going to repeat that all the way around to the last 3 stitches. So I'll meet you for those last 3 stitches. So continue to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 14 stitches, followed by your corner around to those last 3 stitches. So I've just worked my final corner, so just going to work 1 single crochet into each of these last 3 single crochets. That's the last one that we turned in, and then I'm going to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made to join, and then we are ready to fasten off. So again, we'll leave a nice long tail so I can weave that in later. So at the end of row 8, you probably have one of the cutest granny squares you've ever seen. I hope you think it's cute. And it most definitely looks like snowflakes to me. So going into round 9, we're going to start by joining our colour A into any of our chain 2 spaces. So any corner. So you can do it the right way if you want to. I'm just going to actually make a slip stitch on this one because there we go. and we're going to go straight in. So you can either tie it on or you can do it this way. So into this first corner, we're going to work our corner. So we single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet into that same corner space. I'm going to pop my stitch marker back in. It just means that I can count my stitches a lot easier. So once we've worked our corner, we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're ready to work our spike stitches. So we're going to start by working 1 row down from the stitch we've just worked. Bring that loop up. We're going 2 rows below the next stitch. Bring that loop up. Pop that finger on to keep it secure if you need to. And then we're 1 row below the next. And then we can yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And we're going to work right behind that spike, the last spike stitch that we, the final spike. So if you look at the back, you've got 1 skipped stitch. And then we're ready to do our next spike. So we're going 1 row below, and then over 2 rows below the next, and then another 1 row below the next. Yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Make sure you're getting that single crochet just behind that last loop of the last spike. Work 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. We're ready to work our next spike. So 1 row below, 2 rows below under the next stitch, and 1 row below the next. Pull through all 4, move that out of the way, make sure we work behind. That's 1 and 2 single crochets. Then we're ready to work our next spike. So we go 1 row below, 1, 2, 2 rows below, and then 1 row below the next. Pull through all 3, and then we have 3 single crochets to work to get to our corner. Make sure you get right behind that last of the spike stitch. There we go. And we're going to repeat this all the way round, working our corners in between. So we're going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 single crochet into the next corner, and then we start by working 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and then we're ready to do our spikes again. So we go 1 row beneath, 2, I always miss that one, don't I? There we go. 2 rows beneath, and then 1 row beneath the next. And we just need to make sure we get that stitch just behind that last spike before we work those next 2 single crochets. So continue to repeat that all the way around, and I'll meet you back ready to join. We should have 4 spike stitches on each side of our squares. So make sure you're getting behind that last spike that we made when you work your 2 single crochets. So I'm back to my final corner. I've removed my stitch markers now because they're clattering on my table. So I'm just going to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made when we rejoined, and that completes round 9. So as I said, you should now have 8 spiked cluster stitches, and you should have a total number of 56 single crochets and still have your 4 chain 2 spaces for your corners. You'll be happy to know there aren't any more spikes for a little while now. So we're going to turn our work and go into round 10. And for round 10, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 17 stitches. And that will take us over to our first corner. We're then going to work our first corner. And then to repeat it around, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 18 stitches across, working to the top of each of those single crochets and working each of our corners. I might be playing yarn chicken with this cream that I've got left. I think I might be over exaggerating. I don't know how much more we need. There's only a couple more rounds in this colour, I believe. There we go. So I've reached my first corner. So I'm going to work 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further 1 single crochet. Move that tail out of the way. and then we're going to work back across. So this is the rear side of I actually quite like this side of my square. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 18 stitches across all of these sides, and then work our corners of a single crochet, chain 2 and a single crochet all the way around to the last corner, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet before we slip stitch to join. So continue to work around for round 10, and I'll meet you for that final slip stitch. So I'm just going to work my last single crochet, and then I'm ready to slip stitch to that first single crochet that we made in round 10. So at the end of round, I've already automatically turned. So at the end of round 10, we are going to have a total stitch count of 80 single crochets, and we've still got those 4 chain 2 spaces. So going into round 11, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the each of the next 2 single crochets, and work our first corner into that chain 2 space. So single crochet, chain 2 and a single crochet. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 20, and then our corner, and then we're going to repeat that all the way around to the last 18 stitches. So then we're going to work 18 single crochets ready to join to where we started. So work around for round 11, and I'll meet you ready for round 12. So I've just reached my last stitch for round 11, just making sure I've worked in that last single crochet where we turned, ready to slip stitch to join to that first single crochet that we made, and then we are ready to go straight into round 12. So for round 12, we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of the first 19 stitches, work our corner, and then we're going to work around working 1 single crochet into each of the next 22, work our corner, and repeat that around, ready to the last 3, and I will meet you there. It's a nice easy round, this one. Just going to work 1 single crochet into each. So along this first top, it's going to be 19 single crochets to your first corner. Work your corner, which is a chain 1, which is not, it's a single crochet, chain 2, another single crochet into the corner space, and then down each of the other sides you're going to work 22 single crochets and your corners in between, and I'll meet you for those last 3 stitches. I'll see you at the end of round 12. So I've just worked my last corner, and I'm just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. I'm going to work under where we turned our row, and then we are ready to slip stitch to join, and we are going to fasten off colour A. So yes, you probably know what that means for round 13. So make sure that you've got the right side of your work facing you, and we are going to be joining colour A back into any of our corners. Now I'm just going to show you what mine looks like. This is a square that is definitely going to need some serious blocking from my point of view. I don't know if it's my tension because the maths works, but yeah, it's just a little bit of a wonky square. I think the tension in the spike stitches causes it to wave a little bit, and plus my single crochets are always tight. So we are going to grab colour A. No, colour B, isn't it? Goodness, silly me. I'm going to grab colour B and join that into any corner. You can either tie it on like I did on the first one, or you can just work a little tiny chain 1 that doesn't count, just to secure. And we're ready to go straight into round 13. So we're going to start by working 1 single crochet, a chain 2, and another single crochet into that corner space, making sure you can find your chain 2. There we go. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm going to move that out of the way because we are getting ready to spike stitch. This is the last time we're going to do this, I promise, okay? But it is kind of worth it. So I'm going to show you once again how to do the spike stitch. So we go 1 row underneath that first stitch that we worked, 2 rows underneath that next stitch, and then 1 row under the next. I am keeping my finger on those loops so they don't get any smaller. It makes it easier and reduces my tension, definitely. I'm going to make sure we work into that stitch behind that spike, and then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and we're going to repeat that across. So 1 row beneath that last stitch we worked, 2 rows beneath the next, and then 1 row below this next stitch as well. Yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Then make sure you're getting behind that last spike. 1 single crochet into the next 2, and we're just going to continue to repeat that all the way across. So we should have 6 spike clusters on each side of our squares. So continue to work across and I'll meet you for our last 4 stitches. So I've just worked my last spike stitch across here, so I have 6 spikes, and I'm just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches, and then we're ready to work our corner. So 1 single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. So we're going to repeat this across each side of our square. So we work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 single crochets, followed by our spike cluster, 2 double crochets, spike cluster, all the way across. You're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the last 4 stitches, and then work your corner. Remember, you should have 6 spikes on each side, so keep working all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of round 13. I had to pull in the centre of my square because the waviness was just doing my head in. So I've just finished my last round of the last side of these spikes, and I'm just going to slip stitch to join to that first single crochet that we made, and then we are ready. Oh no, I'm going to tell you the stitch counts actually, so don't forget you should have, of course, 24 spiked cluster stitches. You're also going to have a total of 80 single crochets, and you've still got your 4 chain 2 spices. Sorry, can you tell that I'm hungry? Spaces, they're spaces, Fiona. So we're going to go right into round 14, and for round 14 we are going to work 24 single crochets all the way to our first corner. So basically 1 single crochet into each, across to the corner, and then down. We're going to work our corner, which is, as you know, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 single crochet, and then down all the other sides we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 26 single crochets. In between we're going to work our corners, and that will take you all the way around to the last 2 stitches, where we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 and slip stitch to join. So work your round 14, and I'll meet you in a moment to work row 15. I've just worked my final corner in round 14, just working my last 2 single crochets, one of which is underneath where we turned, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. Now at the end of round 14 you should have a total stitch count of 112, so double check that, and then you are ready to fasten off, because we're going to change. Am I going to have enough? I think I will. We're going to change to colour, back to colour A, to work a final 2 rounds in our final colour. You can continue in your colour B if you want to. I'm going to add in my colour A just because I like this to be a bit more of a border colour. I am not convinced that there's enough there. I'm sure it'll be fine. So just like we've done before, we're going to join into any one of our corners, and we're going to start by just attaching our yarn. We're then going to work our corner, which is our single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Ooh. That's my dog, I'm sorry. You probably heard her before in one of these videos, snoring away. And then for round 15, once you've joined and worked your first corner, we're going to work this the whole way round. We're going to work 28 stitches all the way across, 1 single crochet into each, then work our corners, and we're doing that on each side. So you should have 28 single crochets and your corners. So continue to work that for round 15, and I'll see you ready for round 16. So I've completed round 15, and I've slip stitched to that first stitch that we made. And at the end of round 15 you should have a total of 120. what they called single crochets, that's right. So we're going to turn our work, and this is our final round, you'll be happy to know. And for round 16 we are going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 29 stitches, and then we work our corner, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 30 stitches with a corner in between. We're going to repeat that on each side, and I'm going to meet you back for our last stitch and our final join, and then I'm going to talk to you in more detail about getting this square blocked. Please don't worry if you are waving around in the air at the moment and your square is a little bit kinky, because you're not alone, but there is a very easy way for us to fix that. So I will see you at the end of round 16 to work out how we can get this square blocked quickly and easily. So I'm just going to work my last single crochet in round 16, and then I'm ready to slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet that we made before we fasten it off for the final time. I have done a little knot in that one. I will probably undo that later, but there we go. So at the moment, that is how my square is looking. It's okay, because this is what blocking is all about. So if you've got a bit of a wavy square like I have, I know my stitch counts are correct. It's probably more to do with my tension than anything else. And already, just by manipulating it gently, pressing it gently down into the table, no heat, no nothing other than the heat in my hands, already the square is looking more square and a lot less wavy. Don't underestimate just taking the time just to place your crochet items flat and just pressing them gently. But if you really do, I mean, that's done as far as I'm concerned. Don't forget, if you're making this as part of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along, you are going to be able to seam it. You're going to be joining it to other squares that probably are flat, but mathematically, I promise you, this square is 100% correct. There's no reason for my crochet to look like this other than my tension. So obviously I've got uneven tension, which is fine, it's normal, it happens to us all. So if you need to really block your square, what I'd recommend is, if you have a old yoga mat, a piece of cardboard, or anything that can get wet without any issues, get your iron, put it on a steam. It doesn't need to be steam, you can't just use heat, you need a bit of moisture there to kind of encourage it and soak it so it then dries. And just gently, literally no more than, don't go any closer than an inch to your square. Do not allow the heat, any direct heat, to go onto here, and then just let that gently soften the stitches and manipulate it to where you want to be. If you have a blocking board, of course, you can pin it out to shape and size to 8 inches to 8 inches. You just make sure that you're using a very light steam and then allow it to dry. Don't unpin it, don't move it until it's completely 100% dry, and it'll be a perfect snowflake square. So thank you so much for joining me to complete your very own snowflake spike square as part of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. Now, of course, you do have 1 or 2 ends to get woven in, so make sure you do that. Give your square a light blocking. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.